Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. I am your host, Michael. Um, every year, I try to devote episode uh, of not strictly for the ladies. Boxing is not just a sport for dudes. Women participate, women write about it, women cover it, women talk about it, and it only feels right for me to have a episode at least once a year where I just have a show with just yours truly and have exclusively an all a guest featuring all women. Been doing it for the past 4 years, I believe. Doing it again this evening. Usually I do it around the springtime, but because boxing was shut down due to COVID-19 pandemic, wasn't able to do it because there wasn't any fights happening. So we're doing it tonight. Ladies Love Boxing special episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. We're gonna get it in. Gonna have the ladies just talk boxing. Pandemic be damned. Joining me this evening is Gail from Communities Digital News, Francis for Four Boxing News. What's going on, ladies?
Hey, good to see you, Francis. I'm so glad you're with me.
Oh my gosh, great to see you, Gail.
And Michael, you couldn't have picked a better weekend to do the show. Yeah, there was just, we were dragging along there, and God bless the promoters who were, trying to get out there in the bubble and the fight sphere and fight camp, but it finally came together this weekend. We had some real action all across the board for once. And if you were really, really a boxing degenerate, you even watched Fight Camp Kazakhstan Sunday morning on ESPN Plus.
Or in the case of yours truly, I was able to find Sergio Martinez, former middleweight champion, who's making a comeback at age 45. You was able to find his fight or just some random stream that someone did on Facebook as I wrote about that, as I recapped that fight for Three Boxing News. Please check out my work over there at
on Telemundo on Friday. So yeah, you could really grind it all weekend. And
right.
We love it.
Absolutely. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, podcast, live YouTube show, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is, when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it for the time being. If you want to find out all information about the show, if you're watching us live on YouTube, just hit that description, show more link below. Get all the information on where you can find the show on social media, where you can find the show on all RSS feeds that carry podcasts, where you can donate, as well as my online fitness coaching page. For those who are into Beachbody, I am an online Beachbody coach. New fitness challenge starting August 31st. Hot new wave, hot new program. 6 weeks of the work. I'm doing a 6 weeks of the work challenge starting on August 31st. Is going to end in early October. If you're not watching us live on YouTube, just check out the Pound for Pound Box Report blog, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. You'll find all the similar information there as well. Let's get things going this evening. And normally I will start with Gail, but since it's been a while since Francis has been on here, I'm going to start with her first. And it's and Eddie Hearn's fight camp on Saturday. Dillian Whyte fighting Povetkin, and who saw that coming as Whyte, and arguably the biggest upset of the year, at least one of them, certainly a leading candidate for knocked out of the year. He got his spirit knocked into another dimension by Povetkin. He was leading, knocked out in 5 rounds. He was leading on the cards after 4 rounds. In the 4th round specifically, he had put Povetkin down twice. And early in the 5th round, first 30, 35 seconds, Povetkin, he slipped a punch and he came with a left uppercut from hell that put Whyte out cold. Whyte says he wants a rematch. Eddie Hearn said they're going to try to shoot for a rematch with Povetkin. But your level of surprise, if not outright shock, at what you saw?
Oh, I was completely shocked. I couldn't believe that happened. I couldn't believe that happened. To me, it seemed like Dillian Whyte was on his way to winning that fight. So, just from seeing the fourth round and seeing how quickly things changed with that uppercut, and it was just lights out for Dillian Whyte. I couldn't believe it. I watched the replay over and over, and I just can't believe that happened. And, the thing is, too, is that I'm not really a big fan of Povetkin just because he has such a reputation of being a cheater. I'd say that definitely is a candidate for knockout of the year, but at the same time, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of Povetkin. So it was a little bit bittersweet. It was a little bittersweet to watch.
Your thoughts, Gail?
I'll tell you what, the look on Eddie Hearn's face after the fight said it all. I mean, that man is not often at a loss for words, and he was like a fish gasping for air. His plans had wildly changed in one fell swoop. And I think the reason it was so shocking is because of the prior round where Whyte had decked Povetkin twice. And you figured, okay, this is going down to the end here pretty quick. Povetkin did get up. The first one was a flash knockdown. But the second one was the real deal. And we figured, okay, writing's on the wall. We get it. We're going to see the end here pretty quick. And we're going to have an extra few minutes to, break before we start watching the next card. And the tables turned so fast. And it was one of those flash uppercuts. He set it up with a right feint to the body, just barely touched him, just enough to move him right into position. Oh, my Lord. And nobody saw it coming, least of which Dillian Whyte. And one of those knockouts where the guy's out cold before his head hits the canvas. I mean, thank God he got up as quickly as he did. That was a big relief. So, looks like everyone's plans for fight matchups are going to be changing here in the next couple of months in the heavyweight division, courtesy of that upset. To their credit, both men were enrolled in VADA and in the WBC's clean boxing program. So, both of them have made their missteps where that's concerned. If there was an even matchup between people who sinned, in the past, this was it. And I do think both of them approached this fight cleanly, on even turf. And I'll tell you, in the lead up to the fight, we had an opportunity to interview Povetkin via Zoom and chat with him. And man, he was focused. He isn't a guy that jokes around a lot to begin with, but I mean, it was all business, and he looked good. So while it was sort of a surprise the way it happened, I did predict he'd win, but I didn't think he'd win like that.
Few points to few points here to ponder over. Whyte got knocked out by the uppercut. Why do I mention that? He talked about the following morning, he did an interview for Sky Sports Boxing. He talked about how he's in good spirits and he's okay, and that he just needs to make some minor adjustments and whatnot. Shoot straight for the rematch. The reason I mentioned how he got knocked out was this is not the first time where he's been put down or finished off by that punch. When he lost to Joshua, I think it was December 2015, Joshua finished him off with an uppercut. When he fought Oscar Rivas last summer, Rivas put him down with an uppercut. I want to say that Joseph Parker hurt him with the uppercut as well. And you saw what happened this past weekend. He talks about he just needs to make quote unquote minor adjustments. Whyte, well, first and foremost, you got to figure out how to avoid that uppercut, son, because you keep getting not only hit with it, but hit and hurt. And in this case, you got hit and hurt, and you got put out. That's point number one. And I'll go to you with this question, Francis, and you can follow up, Gail. Yes, he lost, and he talks about wanting a rematch. Even if he gets the rematch and wins, where does he go? The reason I ask is because this guy has, with 2 years being mandatory contender for the WBC title, right? At 100 at heavyweight. Um, in that interim, you had a lot of fighters get an opportunity to fight for a world title and he hasn't. And if we're really going to be honest, you talked about how shocked Hearn was, Gail. Okay, outside he may have been shocked, and I'm not doubting his level of surprise, but this is the same Eddie Hearn who's also talking about making a fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, even while Whyte, who he both promotes, even while Whyte has been pushing and raising all types of hell prior to this fight to get a shot at the WBC title. So long-winded as that was, Francis, sure he gets a rematch. Sure does he wins, but does that move the needle at all in the aftermath of this devastating defeat?
I don't think so. I actually don't think it moves the needle at all. Because I don't know how impressive of a win against Povetkin is at this point, with Povetkin's reputation. And I'm sure Gail is totally correct that he came in there cleanly, competed fairly, didn't use any PEDs, but I don't know how much it really elevates his career. He may be able to beat him convincingly the second time around, but I don't really know how much that does for Dillian Whyte's career.
Same question applies to you, Gail.
Yeah. Hearn was, while he was sort of grasping for words, got asked about, well, this does sort of make things a little cleaner. Maybe you can make that Fury Joshua fight after all. And yeah, I don't know if Hearn was just being a good actor or if the wheels were really turning in his head while you were watching him being interviewed, because he's sort of starts saying, well, I guess that's true. I think he's 80 steps ahead all the time, because what it means is Joshua can get rid of his mandatory against Pulev. Fury can get rid of Wilder, and then they can get down to business with the fight that he sees himself making more money on, which is staging Fury and Joshua in the UK with, of course, what he hopes are 90,000 plus screaming fans in the stands. So it does tidy things up. I mean, no matter whether you're a big fan of Dillian Whyte or not, you have to feel terrible for him and the way this all played out. I kind of think the ship has sailed for him. And you're right, Francis. I don't know what a rematch really proves. If I'm Povetkin, I mean, I guess he still wants to keep fighting. And truly, he looked as good as he has in years. And he's almost 41 years old. But, a lot of heavyweights go into their 40s and they do just fine. And there's plenty of young, rising stars if he wants to play the veteran gatekeeper role to keep getting checks rolling in. I mean, who knows? He's got some options. I think Whyte has fewer options than Povetkin does.
He will never be able to get to the point where he was prior to this fight. No. Because of what's going to happen to the champs, they're going to fight each other. It's just not going to be. He doesn't have the backing. He didn't have the backing or the pull before. And for me, and either of you can correct me if I'm wrong in my thinking here, you can feel bad for him, but at a certain point you can't. Well, only up to a certain point, excuse me, because he had opportunities to fight for other sanctioned titles, and he had the opportunity to leave Hearn, right? And he didn't. If he would have signed with a PBC when he had the chance, he probably would have got a title fight against Wilder. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And let's remember, he's the one that lost the fight.
Right.
There were no dirty tricks. He legitimately lost to a guy who caught him. So he's written his own ticket in large part all the way around.
Indeed. So yeah, it's not just the fact that he lost Dillian Whyte. It's all that left him in, not just physically, but in terms of business wise and whatever. This was a devastating defeat for Dillian Whyte. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to recover from this. I'm going to you, Gail, to talk about the main undercard bout here. Katie Taylor, undisputed women's lightweight champion, on the undercard of Joshua Ruiz won June 1st, 2019 at MSG. Um, she fought, in my opinion, the fight of the year against Delfine Persoon. We've talked about this before. Both of us feel that Persoon won that first fight. Taylor got the decision, eked it out. They fought again on the undercard of Whyte Povetkin. And I asked both of you ladies before the show, and I'll ask you again here. I'm thinking, okay, I know that Taylor got the decision. I know there seems to be kind of a quasi-unanimous feeling that Taylor won the fight. But in watching it, and I watched it just before we began recording here, watching it again, I'm thinking Persoon beat her again. Am I wrong?
If you thought Persoon beat her in the first fight, like I did, you probably think Persoon beat her again in the second fight, like I did. She was the aggressor. She directed the pace of the fight throughout. She put on the pressure. She brawls. She's super aggressive. She's a lot busier in the ring. Yes, she is awkward. She's a messy fighter. She will throw 10 punches to land 3. She's just one of those fighters. And she herself admits if she tidy up her act, maybe through 5 punches instead of 10, she could put a little more strength behind the 5 than rolling it out on the 10. But you know what? She's not going to change now. Not at this point. She's been at it a long, long time. And she's also much naturally bigger than Taylor. But if you like the cleanliness, the footwork, the craft, which Taylor clearly has over Persoon, you're going to reward that. And if neither woman truly hurts the other seriously, without that differentiation there, it's going to be what do you reward? Do you reward the aggression, the work rate, the punching, or do you reward the craft? The judges rewarded the craft. Now, I was really surprised at Persoon and her camp agreeing to fight with 3 British judges on the panel, all 3. Really, not even one from Mexico or the Philippines or Europe or something. It might not have changed things, but man,
I don't think she had a choice, Gail.
I guess
Excuse me for interrupting, because let's face it, Taylor was supposed to fight Serrano. This fight was kind of put together in a hurry. I think in order to get the fight, she just had to accept that.
Probably. The one thing that I'm happier about than I was the first time, when Persoon lost the first fight, she was devastated. When she lost this one, she said, due credit to her, she won. I give it to her. I trust the fighter, to be honest. And she felt she won the first one. This time she, tipped her hat to Taylor and said, you have this. Partially because I think she was hit very hard in the second round and had a pretty awful cheekbone cut right at the top of that bone. I mean, when it's open, it's just open. The cut man did a great job keeping it under control. But after the fight, Persoon said she was pretty sure that when she suffered that cut, that Taylor also broke her nose. So that tells me something about what Persoon's attitude was after the fight, accepting the defeat this time.
Delfine Persoon, Francis, may have accepted the defeat and gave Taylor credit for the win, but that don't mean I agree with her. Again, Persoon, she just fights like she just don't give a damn. Like, fuck your feelings. I'll pose the same question I posed to Gail. Am I just out of way here in thinking that Persoon won this fight?
No, definitely not. I thought that Persoon was the more aggressive, explosive fighter. Um, I think if the judges maybe saw the fight in favor of Taylor, it was because she changed up her strategy a little bit. I compared both of the fights, and it seemed like Taylor was, just trying to outbox her, maintain the distance, outjab her a bit, change some angles. She was able to change her strategy, but in the middle rounds, I noticed it was just kind of the same fight as the second fight, as the rematch, with Persoon really coming in as the aggressor, and then Taylor trying to have, an exchange with her in the middle of the ring. But ultimately, I felt that Persoon was the more aggressive fighter. I don't think you're wrong for believing that Persoon won. I can't see why the judges think that Taylor won this time, just because she changed up her strategy. And was just cleaner and more technical in the earlier rounds. But ultimately, I felt that Persoon, deserved the win this time as well, in addition to the first time. But Persoon accepted the defeat very graciously. So maybe she saw something in Taylor that made her understand why she lost in the rematch and why she didn't win.
Going back to you, Francis, because Persoon, she basically said she lost and gave Taylor full credit. The question now becomes, where does Taylor go from here? She's undisputed champion. She won a title at 140. Given the developments the previous week with McCaskill and Breakus, do you see Taylor going up in weight to try to pursue a bout against Jessica McCaskill, or do you see her staying at her weight at 135 pounds, or do you think she could entertain fighters from 130 moving up, wanting to fight her?
Well, in my opinion, I think it would be best if she faced McCaskill. Because the first fight was so explosive. I mean, I would just love to see a rematch between the two of them. And of course, Jessica McCaskill is from Chicago. I'd love to see a rematch between she and Taylor. Obviously the fight between Breakus and McCaskill was very close. But I think that McCaskill can take it to Taylor the way that Persoon did. I think that we'd see some of the same similarities in that rematch that you saw with Taylor and Persoon. So from my standpoint, being Chicagoan based, I would like to see a rematch between McCaskill and Taylor for sure. And I think I've heard rumblings that that's actually going to happen. So, nothing confirmed yet, but I think that she is going to be her next opponent.
I'm going back to you quickly before I go to Gail Francis.
Sure.
Since you're here,
sure.
Your thoughts on that McCaskill Breakus fight? Do you think that McCaskill won? Because there's quite a few people who live the night of the fight and even afterwards, I have to say myself included, felt that Breakus, though she didn't look great, she did enough to win.
I thought it was a very close fight. I could definitely see that Breakus did do enough to win. She had a huge height advantage over McCaskill to me, and I thought she could easily have won the fight just by maintaining her distance and just really using the jab, staying on the outside instead of exchanging with McCaskill inside. But ultimately, I felt that maybe Breakus felt that McCaskill wanted it more. Maybe the judges felt like McCaskill wanted the fight, wanted the win more, and was just the more aggressive fighter, the more explosive fighter. I think Breakus could have done a lot more to just kind of maintain her distance and not exchange with McCaskill as much, which I think would have worked to her favor. But ultimately, I don't know if she really followed the right strategy this fight in order to beat McCaskill, according to the judges. But I mean, I could have seen it going either way. I could have totally seen it going either way, for sure. But I could, I understand why people thought that Breakus won, for sure. I do. Watching the fight, I could understand that. And even looking at McCaskill's face at the end of the fight, I could understand it as well, because I'm not so sure that she thought she won convincingly. I'm not so sure. I think she doubted it as well. And even in the post-fight interview, she said it takes a lot to take it away from the champion. And she seemed sincerely surprised. So no, I can completely see what you're saying, for sure.
Shout out to Gus from Corruption and Boxing in the live YouTube chat. He says that definitely Persoon won the fight. He says that the result was a travesty. Every play betting market has 7-4 by round 8. I go to you, Gail. A lot of people, well, I can say a lot of people. I'll say this. I agree with you. I'm not going to call it an outright travesty, but I agree with you in believing that Persoon won the fight. I'll go to you, Gail. Katie Taylor, where does she go from here?
Oh, bring on Jessica McCaskill. That script is written. Francis is absolutely right. I'm with you all the way. Rematch time. There's history. So the backstory is interesting. The only question to me is, what division do they do it in? McCaskill went up a division to face Breckus. So she could easily decide to face Taylor at 140, not risk her welterweight unification titles. I mean, set them on the shelf. They're safe. She'll have nothing to lose there and go for it. And yeah, do that fight in Chicago and all the Irish fans come over. They'll show up anywhere. And the rest of us need to get ourselves there, because that is going to be some fun. That's a matchup that absolutely has to happen. And McCaskill got on social media immediately after the Taylor Persoon fight and called out Taylor politely, but made her feelings clear. She was ready to go. I like that attitude.
Yeah, it wasn't just McCaskill with some other fighters. I think Alicia Bumgarner also said on social media that she feels that she would beat Katie Taylor as well.
Get in line.
I agree. Yeah. She. I like her as a fighter. She has that it factor, but she hasn't proven enough to warrant a fight with Taylor. Hadn't fought the level of competition, hadn't had the level of exposure in terms of in the ring. I agree with you ladies both that McCaskill Taylor, that is the fight right now. I'll say at 140 because I don't think
I think
Hearn will let Taylor move up to 147 pounds. I think she makes 135 comfortably. 147 just a little bit too big for her. So I think they'll fight for the titles at 140 pounds. A fight with those two would be very, very good. Being in Chicago, it would be nice to be in Chicago because the first time they fought in England, I believe, and just all things being fair, bring that fight to the U.S. Bring that fight to Chicago for both ladies, but especially McCaskill because I'd like to see her make big money, and she would make big money in a rematch versus Taylor in Chicago. Going on to some more fights here. I'm going to split these fights up. Going to you, Francis. Eleider Alvarez fought Joe Smith. To me, Francis, this is one of the more impressive performances of Smith's career. He put him down in 9, knocked him out. The knockout reminded me of the way Smith ended the career of Bernard Hopkins. It wasn't just a spectacular finish, Francis, but it was the way he looked prior to the fight. Dare I say he's getting better at this age? Dare I say he's becoming a more complete fighter? A little bit inconsistent from fight to fight, but in this particular match, in this particular win against Alvarez, I thought he put it together. I thought he put it all together in this. I was impressed.
I was impressed too. When I saw Joe Smith in Chicago, he knocked out Andre Fonfara, I believe, in the first round, and I thought this guy has to have some power. He has to have some serious power because Andre Fonfara, he had an ironclad chin, and he just knocked him out. And disappointed a lot of Polish fans here. And since I've been watching Joe Smith's fights, it's just obvious he has a ton of power. But in this fight, he really did a great job of dismantling Eleider Alvarez. But also, I thought that Alvarez wasn't countering with anything more than just the jab. I think it made him very predictable. And it seemed like in the beginning, he was just trying to counter with the jabs, nothing more than that. And Joe Smith was just able to overwhelm him with power punches, with volume punching, and was able to close the distance on Alvarez so quickly. I think Alvarez was just outclassed and overwhelmed and couldn't handle Joe Smith's power. So I have to totally agree with you. I think he has improved. And this was a great win for Joe Smith with that 9th round TKO victory. Amazing.
Where does he go from here? I think he's part of that WBO, I think, elimination kind of tournament thing. Is that set in stone? And who will he fight next?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I defer to you, Gail. What do you think?
Well, Top Rank controls a lot of the light heavyweight action, as does DAZN, but they can all play with each other, and they have before. You know, there's some discussion about feeding Smith to Beterbiev.
Ooh, that'd be good.
I think that would be great.
That would be amazing. I like Beterbiev.
I like them both. I like the matchup. I like the style matchup. You know, they're both just relentless.
Yes.
You know, badass, bad men. And I think they would respect each other for that. They're very similar in approach and personality. They're kind of all business in the right way. And they both pose a serious power threat to each other. So I say, give Joe his shot at Artur. Because who else is going to be on right now? Nobody.
That would be a fun fight for sure. And by the way, Gus from the YouTube chat, he said hello to you ladies.
Hello,
shout out to Yolanda Cortez, who's watching us on the show as well.
Hey,
In terms of Smith and Beterbiev, that would be a fun fight. The problem is, I think it'll be a while until it happens. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. The article, you can see it. I posted up today. Go to threekingsboxing.com. Shout out to K and Bo. Beterbiev, he's fighting a guy by the name of Adam Dienes. He was supposed to fight the Chinese guy Feng Long, but Feng Long could not make it because he could have fought, but because of COVID-19 restrictions and visa issues, he could have went to Russia to face Beterbiev, but he wouldn't have been able to come back to the States. He wouldn't be able to go to China, go back to China with his family. He would have had, if he would have fought there, he would have essentially been stuck there. So that was a no-go. So Beterbiev, he's going to fight Deans, and then hopefully he's going to fight on his mandatory. So it'll be a while before a possible fight between Beterbiev and Smith would happen. But to your point, that would be a hell of a fight. It would be a fun fight. Someone's getting knocked out for sure, because Beterbiev, we all know that he can punch. He's strong as an ox. And Smith, given his construction work, all they do is lift stuff. So both of them, that would be TNT, no doubt about it.
Well, right now, Smith and his father are running a tree business. They have a tree service business now. So now he's, at least running his own show, which is great. But yeah, if you're grinding tree stumps and, yanking stuff out of the ground all day and on the end of a shovel and a jackhammer, yeah, that guy is hella tough. I mean, it's amazing. So, the options for him, though, are, he's kind of in an odd spot, because you've got the few that are at the elite of the division, the Beterbiev and the Bivols, and Bivol is sitting there, but I just think that's not a good style matchup for Joe, because Bivol will just dance around him all night. That's just, that's all that's going to happen there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, they've already fought, so...
Yeah, and that's what Bivol did. He danced around him all night. So, there you go. On the other hand, did you put him up? I mean, if Zurdo Ramirez, was still talking to Uncle Bob, maybe we'd be having a discussion about Joe Smith and Zurdo Ramirez. But I don't think you're going to go there. some of the guys that are, rising up through the division aren't really going to risk it. Now, I understand Isaac Chilemba is like, hey, give me a shot at him. Well, that's not the worst thing I've ever heard. That's completely makeable. Chilemba has had fights fall out all year because he can't get out of South Africa due to the pandemic. But maybe now that things are a little bit more calmed down, he'd be able to, get out and get over here and make a fight. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The good news is he doesn't really have to make a decision right away. And I'd like to see him fight one more time this year. But if he has to wait for better views, I mean, that might, he might have to do that, or maybe take a journeyman type fight. Who knows?
One more fight on the docket before we get to news and whatnot, and I'll go to you, Gail. Last week we talked about Shawn Porter fighting a guy by the name of Formella, and I said that basically Formella, based on my observation of him on film, to me Formella is Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope, and that played itself during the fight. And I just felt going in that he just didn't offer enough resistance. He moves a lot, and to me, when someone really moves a lot, when they're in there against someone who's really strong or really can punch, moves a lot means that they're a runner, they're a survivor, and that's what basically he did. He showed that he can take a bit of a punch, but he didn't do nothing to threaten Porter in a serious way, and you got what you got, a dominant win by Porter. Not only your thoughts on the fight, but Porter is just that guy who's always going to be there when it comes to 147 pounds. He's a tough out for anyone. I don't care who you put him in there with. You saw the hell that he gave Spence. You saw what he did, the hell that he gave Garcia, Thurman. Former champ. Former champion, WBC champion, former two-time champion division. What's his next move in the aftermath of this win?
Well, first of all, when I would have to really look through Porter's record, and I'm not sure. I think I feel pretty safe in saying that is the first time he's ever had a shutout 120 to 108 on all three cards in a fight. I mean, if there was ever a 120 to 108 scorecard fight, this was it. It was just a blowout. And he set a personal record for himself for number of punches thrown in 12 rounds. He threw 785 punches, and he landed twice as many of them as Formella did. I mean, it was just, I'd call it a sparring session, but sparring partners tend to put up more resistance than that because otherwise they're not earning their paycheck. I mean, it was just that kind of fight. And Shawn was smart to take it, even though it wasn't really much of a challenge, because he got himself in front of the fans. That's really important right now when a lot of guys sort of sitting on the shelf because, they can't get the fights they want. They can't get the payday they want. Credit to Shawn for saying, no, I'm putting myself out there. I'm staying busy. I'm going to take a fight. I'm going to keep the rust from accumulating. Well, he certainly did that with that performance. I mean, he definitely worked, keeping himself relevant because we don't really know how everything's going to shake out. We think we might know what's going to happen, or we're making our predictions about Spence and Garcia, but what if Spence shows that he really did take some damage from that car accident, or he's not quite right yet? I'm one of those people. I was ringside and thought Porter won that fight. I really did. In a similar way to the reason I thought Persoon won the Taylor fight, I thought Porter won the Spence fight. Close, not a robbery, but, nobody would hate a rematch. Nobody would hate that rematch. I realized that Porter and Bud Crawford are friends and would really rather not fight each other, but you know what? They might not have an option, and they they have said if they have to do business, they will. And I think they should. I think they should. They're a good option for each other given the rest of the landscape. The thing that always surprises me is Shawn. I think Shawn Porter, I think of him as much older than he is. He's 32 years old. You know, he's still pretty fresh considering, how many rounds, really tough rounds he's put in. He's still got a lot of tread on the tires. He's got plenty of options. He's probably got more options than any of the other guys because he can really do business with everybody. And
Let's go to the new.
In the meantime, he can dress up fly, do his commentary, have a good time, and get a little bit of a paycheck on the side. So he's good.
Dress up fly. I don't think dress up. He's eccentric, and just leave it there because I like him as a fighter. He's a good guy.
Well, maybe we need to send him a new tie, but
Let's get to the news segment, and I'm gonna bring both of you ladies into this. The WB in regards to Canelo Alvarez, the WBC ordering him to fight Avni Yildirim at 168. Say
Boo!
what now?
Boo!
I guess that's your reaction, Francis. Just boo.
Yeah, that fight is a total boner killer. That's it. I'm excited to see that fight. There's so many other exciting fights that they could make. He could fight Callum Smith. He could fight Demetrius Andrade. He could do a trilogy with Gennady Golovkin. There are so many other fights that they could possibly make. I don't understand why. But I'm actually not surprised that DAZN reacted that way. They're like, no, dude, this isn't included in your contract. No.
You know what? But not without the gate. They can't do those fights without the gate. DAZN, Canelo, the other big level names, they just can't do those fights without a gate. They can't give out the money. So this is, I think, I have to think that Canelo calls up his buddy, Senor Thurman, and says, listen, we're ordering up the fight. So I've got a bargaining chip, with DAZN. So that they say, well, no, we don't really want you to have this stinking fight with this guy. Well, maybe we'll come back to the table and work a little harder on that Callum Smith thing. That's what I think this is. Because otherwise, I'm with you. I mean, who wants to see this? I'm completely holding my nose. I don't care. I love a Canelo fight, but
me too.
This is pointless. I'd rather he sit. I'd rather he just sit and wait.
If DAZN doesn't take the fight, what I'm hearing some echo here, so you might have to put if you got it on YouTube, you might have to put it on mute. If DAZN doesn't take the fight, what do you think about the possibility of, say it happens, Alvarez Yildirim? What do you think about the possibility of it happening on Showtime? Because I've been hearing through the tea leaves that DAZN turns it down, that Heyman will pick up the fight. What the meaning of that, ladies?
I don't know. That still doesn't excite me.
I have a hard time believing that. But
I mean, the reason
he does. Wouldn't it be a riot if he put it on Fox? He puts it on Fox and Fox Deportes, and lets that thing roll on full broadcast TV in the United States and Deportes for the Mexican American fans and in Spanish. And you get your pay-per-view money overseas, right? You just blow it off here. And that would be, that would be a real fuck you. It really would. If that's what they want, that'd be the way to do it. That would definitely stick it to everybody else involved. I don't see that happening. I'm not sure that Al has that kind of fuck you money. I'm really not sure he does. That it's interesting, but that sounds like the kind of behind the scenes chatter that's selling YouTube views, if you ask me.
I mean, I could just see it because with Benavidez out there, I could see it. Him Heyman picking up the fight, Canelo winning, of course, and then trying to possibly set up something between Canelo and Benavidez down the road. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the other options are that, because of this fight with the zone, Golden Boy and Canelo have sort of ended up on the same side of the fence together over this. And, maybe Golden Boy says, listen, let's keep it all in house. We'll pull one of our other guys. Because, we were all pretty darn disgusted at the thought that they were going to put him up against somebody like Jason Quigley. No. Or Patrick Teixeira. Slightly better, not much. I would rather see him fight someone like David Lemieux. It might not last long, but it would be fun. And Lemieux's under Golden Boy's, umbrella. It could be at 168. That's not going to happen at 160 for Lemieux, and that way Canelo doesn't have to kill himself to come down for that. And that's sort of a why the hell not fight. At least I'd be happier to see that. And Lemieux has a ton of fans. I mean, the Canadian boxing fans, they love them some boxing, and they love them, their fighters, and that would draw that audience. And, that's kind of an interesting, I don't think I've ever seen a Canadian-Mexican, North American rivalry fight before. What the hell? Why not? It sure as heck beats a, obscure Turkish mandatory.
I mean,
that's definitely a bargaining chip. There's no way that is for real.
It's just galling of the WBC to have him fight the same person who got knocked out by Chris Eubank Jr. in 3 rounds not too long ago. It's galling of them. Want to give a quick shout out to some who joined us in the chat. The homie Amma, Lisa Bells, thanks for checking out the show live. Thanks to Yolanda Cortez for checking out the show live. I mentioned her earlier. Gus mentioned in the chat that Suleiman will sanction a title shot for Canelo against the window cleaner. Ha! You got a point there.
That is the truth. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah,
he's doing it. Let's face it, Gus.
We know who's the puppet on the string and who's the puppeteer in that relationship.
Right. And as Gus has talked about here on Pound for Pound Box Report, in previous episodes, ever since that falling out, Canelo and the WBC a while back, WBC doing whatever they damn well can to keep Canelo in good graces, including making him creating a quote unquote franchise championship for him, basically.
Oh my God, don't even get me started on that whole thing. That's just insane. What's the point?
I would even like to see a fight with Jermall Charlo or Billy Joe Saunders. There's so many other opponents. I guess I'm just so surprised that
Nope. Saunders, nope. He keeps putting his foot in his mouth. He keeps getting in his own way. He can't be trusted.
That's true.
Be trusted.
That's true.
Let's move on to some other fights here. Going to you, Francis, and back to you, Francis, I should say. Past couple of shows, I think it was maybe the last show, maybe 2 shows back, we talked about Mikaela Mayer, who took advantage of an opportunity when she was featured, part of a co-feature, I should say. Well, she was main event on ESPN due to Jamel Herring testing positive for COVID. His title bout was postponed. Mayer was put on as the main event. She won, and she looked very good doing so. She's a contender at 130 pounds. She's been on social media calling everybody and their mama and their sister out. Mama, sister, you, me, your mama, and your cousin too, to quote Outkast, at 130. And putting it short, she's finally getting her title shot. She's number 1 contender for the WBO women's title. I can't pronounce the name if I do. Brodnicka. Iwa Brodnicka at 130 pounds. The fight is going to happen later on this year. Your thoughts on Mikaela Mayer? and the fact that your thoughts on her as a fighter and her ability, one, and your reaction to her finally getting the title shot she's been hollering for.
I think Mikaela Mayer is so talented. There's just no other way I could really put it. I think that she's extremely talented, very fast, very explosive. I think that Eva Brodnicka, she's a little bit older, more seasoned, has more experience probably in the ring, a more extensive record. But I think Mayer is really going to give it to her. I think Brodnicka, she kind of has like the kind of style where you move around the ring a lot and then you make your opponent chase you. I could see that Brodnicka maybe will do that with Mayer, but I see Mayer maybe just closing the distance on her, throwing 4, 5, 6 punch combinations and then connecting on Brodnicka. I think Brodnicka is a pretty decent fighter, but all in all, I think that Mayer is just younger, more explosive, more technical, more skilled, more hungry, and it'll make for a good, entertaining fight for sure.
How good do you think Mayer can become? I mean, you had Terry Harper fight Natasha Jonas, not this past weekend, but the previous weekend. Very good fight. I thought Jonas won it, and that's at 130 pounds. And of course, we just talked about Katie Taylor at the beginning of the show in her rematch against Persoon. Do you think that Mayer has the ability to reach that level and be a potential opponent for Taylor down the road?
Yes, I do. I think that she does have incredible skill, and stylistically, just even with her height and her reach advantage, I think that she would give most of her opponents a run for their money. Even on social media, the bikini pictures help. That's a wonderful way to promote yourself, even as a fighter. It also helps that she has a modeling background and such. She has other things going for her aside from boxing. I think I could see her being, the bigger package. The one thing I'd say that maybe would stand in her way would just be some of the comments that she makes on social media about other fighters. I saw one of the tweets that she sent out about Jessica McCaskill and how she could easily outbox her, and how she's just going to move up in other weight classes and just outbox everybody else too. And I think that that's great, that you have a lot of focus and you have goals, but I think it also takes away from the humility of a fighter when they criticize and kind of disparage the victories of other people, especially other people who now hold titles and have had less professional fights, like Jessica McCaskill. So I think that's the one thing that affects Mikaela Mayer and maybe her image on social media. But as a fighter, I think she's excellent. I think she's actually excellent. And I think that, the sky is the limit for her.
Going to bring both of you back into the discussion in terms of the next two topics here. For those who follow the show, they know that I'm a big fan of unified bantamweight champion Naoya Inoue. His last fight of the year for 2019, as he defeated Nonito Donaire in the finals of the WBSS World Boxing Super Series bantamweight tournament. Inoue defeating Donaire by unanimous decision. And he was really tested in that fight, but he proved his mettle coming back from being hurt, fighting through a cracked orbital bone. The talk after that fight was that he was going to engage in a unification bout with WBO champion John Rael Casimero of the Philippines. That fight fell through. Unfortunately, Casimero is going to be fighting September on Showtime. And I'll start with you, Gail. The Casimero fight fell through, but Inoue, I should say, he's the substitute opponent is not bad at all, as Bob Arum announced internationally on an international media outlet in Australia. I think it's ABC Grandstand, that Inoue has signed a deal, to fight Jason Maloney, who gave Manuel Rodriguez a tough fight. And we last saw him on ESPN last month, stop a guy by the name of Baez. Very impressive in doing so. Uh, he may not be fighting Casemiro, but fighting Jason Maloney, a really good secondary option.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's a great choice. It makes a lot of sense. It's an opponent that Americans know because they just saw him as part of the bubble programming for Top Rank. They are trying to develop the Maloney brothers. Of course, they really thought it was going to be Andrew who was going to make the big splash, and then Andrew went and lost to Joshua Franco. But his brother won on the same card, so he's coming off a victory. I think it's a great matchup. What a great way to save this fight. And these guys, the Maloneys, are more willing to stay in the United States because if predictions about the pandemic, which is getting a vote right now about how these matchups get made, if these guys are willing to stick around and if things get a little more hot, due to the coronavirus, they've been willing to stay in Las Vegas and quarantine and make sure they're available. The Casemiro fights fell out because of travel and visa issues for both of these guys. So that makes it a much more sure thing. And what's also loads of fun is that if we've got Inoue and Jason Maloney in the main event, it looks like a rematch between Franco and Andrew Maloney will be the co-main. Love it all. Bring it on. Got a mute button there, maybe. What do you think, Francis? Are you up for it?
Oh, I'm totally up for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was on mute. I was saying, it looks as if Aram is going to. His goal is to have the bout in November at a locale to be determined. I'm guessing Las Vegas, because Inoue was supposed to make his debut again, his top ranked debut against Casemiro in Las Vegas. So I'm guessing it's the spot for the fight.
Well, and the Maloney brothers have now kind of a secondary camp in the United States there too. So yeah, it just makes it easier. And I think at this point, Aram wants a little bit of, sort of insurance that it can happen. So if they're still operating the bubble or have it maybe, on hold at that point, that's a smart thing to do.
Your thoughts, Francis?
I'm excited for this fight. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup with Inoue and his style and the way that he really attacks the body and is so aggressive, and the number of combinations that he throws. I think that he's going to give Jason Maloney, run for his money. But I also think that Jason Maloney is very composed, very relaxed, very selective and precise with his punches. He might not throw as many combinations as Inoue, but I think he's more selective with his punches. And I think he, even though he looks very relaxed, he's also very defensive. I think he's very entertaining to watch as well. So I'd like to see how their styles match up, in this fight. I think it's going to be exciting, and I can't wait.
I want to give a big shout out to Dan the Man Boxing out in Cali. What up, brother? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening on the show. Lisa says she loves the Maloney brothers, the Maloney twins story. Last bit of news here before we move on to break down what's happening this weekend. Just a couple of fights I want to focus on in terms of upcoming weekend. Within the discussion about Shawn Porter and his win over, again, Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope. We talked about what could be up in the future for Porter, and I think it was you, Gail, who mentioned Terence Crawford, that they're friends, but if all else fails, this is business. And I want to focus on Crawford here, ladies, because at this point, Crawford is going to have to make a move. We talked about this a couple of weeks back, Gail, you and myself, and I believe Daniel as well. It's been a while since we've seen Crawford in the ring for obvious reasons, but more to the point, it's been a while since we've seen him in with a significant fight. We know what they're doing over at PBC with Garcia and Spence. and whatnot. In Porter, he's making his return. Well, one Keith Thurman, him and Bud have been beefing over social media. Uh, um, Thurman doing a lot of chirping, saying that he wants a fight with Crawford. Um, McIntyre went to Facebook and posted, I guess, a private chat between him and Crawford, saying that between him and Thurman, saying that Thurman wanted initially $10 million for the fight. When I first heard this, I was like, okay, why is Thurman um, pushing for $10 million when he said he'll take a dollar short for the fight? He just want Bud in the ring. And then again, in second thought, I'm like, okay, he may have asked for 10 million, maybe outside of his price range, but why not? If Amir Khan got what is it, $6-7 million to fight Bud, I can now, in hindsight, saying I can understand why Thurman asked for 10. That's number one. Number two, what position is Crawford in at this point to be turning down any kind of fight? I mean, where can he go to get a big fight with everybody across the street? He's kind of frozen himself out, and with some of his comments lately, um, saying he wants more money, he just wants just as much money, given our present condition of the sport right now in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. Sir, how dare you? You can't get that kind of money. The gate is not there. We talked about this before, and I'll start the conversation off with you, Francis. Should Team Crawford, instead of pushing back so hard against Thurman, they should be like, okay, you really want this fight? We both need it. Go for it.
Oh, completely, completely. Especially because Thurman, I don't think he would be much of a threat to Crawford. No offense to Thurman, but I just don't think at this point in his career, he would be much of a threat to Crawford. I see Crawford winning the fight, and pretty easily as well. I don't see it being a bad matchup for Crawford, and I think, he should continue to remain active. And if Thurman wants to fight, sure, why not? Just give it to him. Agreed.
And for me, Gail, Francis just said she feels that Crawford will win the fight. If that's the case, why not take the fight? Because it'd be resume building. Say what you want about Thurman. Uh, um, he is a unified champion. And at 147, who has Crawford fought that he would come close to Keith Thurman?
Well, all along through this pandemic, Crawford has been doing interviews saying, if anything, during this time, he's worth more money, not less money. And it's a head scratcher. In whose universe and in whose math system, business accounting system, does it make any economic sense at all, without a gate, with all the issues surrounding the pandemic, that he would be making more money? But he said it over and over. He appears to be dead serious. So this potential matchup comes along. I don't see Bud moving off that storyline, whether it's Thurman or anybody else. He seems to be sticking to his story. And I am not sure Thurman's heart is in this. Seeing him be defeated by Pacquiao, I'm not, I think Keith has one foot out the door. He really does. I don't see his heart in it. It does, in a way, remind me of Cecilia Brækhus. She just did not have the fire. She didn't want to bite down and do whatever it took to win. She was just done. And you run into somebody like McCaskill who is willing to, truly, whatever it takes, whatever hurt, the pain is temporary kind of attitude. I think Keith has gotten a little bit too comfortable, a little bit over it. He has other interests. He's a family guy. He's married. He's got another life. It does get really hard to go back in that gym after you've had that time off. He's had his issues with his injuries. Come on. Do credit to Pacquiao. It was a tremendous performance. But still, this is a 41-year-old Manny Pacquiao beats Keith, not much of the time anymore, Thurman. And I just, talk is cheap. Talk is very cheap. I wouldn't mind it. I'm just not all that sure it moves the needle that much. But yeah, Bud is in a bad spot because he is sort of left out on this little island, this little lonely welterweight island all by himself. To me, one of the few guys I think is available to him and I think would be very dangerous is Virgil Ortiz Jr. Golden Boy would do business for that fight. They certainly would. And I think that is a dangerous fight for Bud. I really do. Which is exactly why I don't think it's going to happen.
A couple of years down the road, I still think he's as talented as Ortiz is. He's still a bit green, in my opinion, compared to for the likes of Bud at this point. Because Crawford is the combination of skill, power, intelligence. Bless you, Francis.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Skill, power, and
that happens.
Yeah, I saw her go on mute and sneeze in the background. This is a combination of skill, power, and intelligence. And he's a rugged guy, but he knows a lot of the tricks in the book, new and old school. Still a little bit more seasoning for Virgil Ortiz, but I see your point just based on pure talent. One more topic here that I purposely left out of the docket when I sent it out earlier. How can I set this up, ladies?
Oh boy, what's coming down here?
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oh my goodness, and his comeback?
Says he's making a comeback. What is up with the boxing old guard, be it Tyson, be it Roy Jones, be it Holyfield talking about a comeback, Lennox Lewis pondering a comeback for a minute? What did you think of the old guard? All these 1990s boxers entertaining a return to the ring, the latest being the Golden Boy.
I think the pandemic has messed with their heads or they're bored or something like that. I mean, Oscar's teased this, though, quite a long time before the whole Tyson and Jones thing came up and everybody else. He's talked about this on and off for a good 18 months. But I think there's a very different motivation for Oscar. We were talking earlier in the show tonight about how difficult it has been to get a matchup made for Canelo. Canelo's carrying Golden Boy right now as a company. They're really struggling. They had to cancel their card that was scheduled for this weekend. That's all they had on the schedule other than the fight down the road now for Ryan Garcia. They've got to make some money somehow. And it occurs to me that maybe Oscar is doing this to keep his company afloat. Because there's no doubt if he did this, it would make a buttload of money. It would. Depending on who he fights, how they monetize it, is a little, YouTube $10 pay-per-view. Does he, go to HBO or Showtime and talk him into it? Does he do a one-off deal with the Zone? I mean, what is the cash? But whatever it is, I see Oscar as doing this, sort of sacrificing himself to bankroll his company and get through this period until they can put audiences back in the seats. Canelo's back on the schedule. The rest of their club fights, which made them a lot of money. Their regional fights in Southern California, every couple of weeks, they were either in downtown LA, out in Indio, with all of their guys. They can't do any of those fights anymore. And that was their bread and butter. So I think this is Oscar, trying to keep from closing his shingle. I do.
Your thoughts, Francis?
What Gail said makes a lot of sense. I don't. Who would he fight if he came back? I actually haven't really thought about that. An old rival, perhaps.
Call up Chavez Senior. Call up Chavez Senior.
Right?
We see him on social.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, he was supposed to
have him fight. Have him fight Maidana.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maidana.
Yes. Sergio Martinez is out.
There you go.
Big for him, I think. I don't know. I think he says he wants to do this fight at 154, right? So, we'd have to give that some thought.
Again, Maidana at 54.
Well, there's Broner.
Oh dear.
Oh gosh.
We're a long way from that, but we'll see. I'll believe it when it's signed. I mean, there was a flurry of attention with him just mentioning this, so that had to be a testing the waters. How would people react? Are they for it? Are they into it? Are they chattering? He knows the business, and he can tell. Is there really interest out there? Feel like,
Yep.
damn the man.
Trinidad, oh for sure.
Trinidad. What the hell? Why not? Hey, there's all kinds of retired, Mexican brawlers out there you could make this fight with. Just go down the list of recently retired guys anywhere near the weight class. Actually called him out. Yes.
Right.
Yes, he did. I have to see the training videos, though. I'm not going to be won over until I see the training videos.
I really don't need to see Amir Khan against anybody else, but this one I wouldn't mind that.
I wouldn't mind it either.
What the hell? And they both have their fans. They both have a fan base. They both draw a crowd. They do. Could be amusing.
Yeah, for those who are not watching us live on YouTube or watching us on YouTube at a later date, who's checking it out like via Spotify or iTunes, I'm Dan the Man. And as I said in the chat, Dan, send me your email via Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page, and I'll send you the info because I gotta have you back on the show, brother. Same goes for you, Lisa Bales. Just send me your email privately to Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page at P4P Box Report, and just send me your emails, and I'll make sure to send you the information to have you back on a later date. Dan was saying here in the YouTube chat, he said, call up Oscar, have them fight again. Shoot, Oscar's still mad about that fight, and send Amosia. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing the name. He said Amir Glass Chin Khan, and ironically enough, Khan has upon De La Hoya making this announcement he's coming back. Khan has said in classic Amir Khan fashion, saying on Twitter, I'd love to fight you. So thirsty, Amir Khan, so thirsty throughout his career. Sad. But so yeah, there you go. Oscar De La Hoya has announced that he's coming back supposedly. Let's get to see these fights here. I'm gonna include both of you ladies in these two fights. Jose Ramirez, unified champion at 140 pounds, WBC, WBO version. Making his return to the ring. I think his last fight was against Maurice Hooker, where he unified the titles. Correct me if I'm wrong, ladies. Making his comeback to the ring this coming Saturday. He's going to fight Viktor Postol. I can't remember if it's going to be at the fight camp in Vegas or another location. I believe it's in Vegas. Postol himself, a former champion. Start the conversation with you, Kel. Postol is taller, he's longer, but he's also older, and Ramirez, excuse me, in his prime right now. with a proposed fight against Josh Taylor down the road, Taylor, who has WBA, IBF titles at 140 pounds. Um, your thoughts on this fight against Postol? Do you think there's a chance that he could overlook Postol with so much on the line? Your thoughts on the fight?
They've been thinking about this fight for a long, long time. This was the first sporting event canceled due to the coronavirus. This was scheduled February 1st in China. And because of the coronavirus moving in and concerns about it, in fact, Postol and Freddie Roach, his trainer, were already in China. The final media news conference call had happened early that week as if it was going to happen. And the next day it got called off. So they've been waiting to reschedule this fight since February 1st. And they've made some attempts and not gotten it on. So, compliments to everybody involved for sticking it out. And finally, fingers crossed, everybody passes their tests and gets into the bubble and they're good. I don't think Postol has more than a remote chance. Everybody's got a chance, and he is skilled, but he does not react to pressure too well. I think Ramirez is just going to give him a beat down. I really do. He is way too aggressive, way too powerful. Postol doesn't. He just doesn't like guys that want to get in and pressure him. He has height to his advantage if he uses it, height and reach, but that's really about it. I don't think Ramirez has a whole lot to fear. I really don't.
So sorry, I was on mute. I see your question in the chat, Gus, asking about any fight announcements in Japan. I'll answer that directly right here. Outside of Inoue, I haven't seen anything. I did some research recently over the last week, looking for some new material to write for Three Kings Boxing, and Kenshiro, who has a belt at 108 pounds, as you know, as well as Koiguchi. Both of them have titles at 108 pounds. They recently had kind of meet and greets / exhibitions. Nothing from them. Nothing from Ioka in the proposed bout against Tanaka in terms of when a date is going to be finalized for that bout. We both know that the fight is going to eventually happen. Just nothing has been announced yet. So in terms of the champions, at least, nothing from the young, highly talented prospect Shigeoka down at 105 pounds. Gus, nothing from him as well. So outside of the Aram announcing that Inoue is going to fight Maloney, I haven't heard anything. So that's the update as far as that. So yeah, Francis, back to Postol and Ramirez. Your thoughts?
I have to agree with Gail. I don't think that Postol's been very active. I think he's only had, a few fights since his loss to Terence Crawford, and I felt that he really faded after that fight. He disappeared for the most part, and he I don't know how he responded to the fight against Crawford, just mentally, because it seemed like after that loss, he just took a step out of the spotlight. So with Jose Ramirez, I do see Jose Ramirez coming as the aggressor, the more aggressive, explosive, hungry fighter, obviously in his prime. But a good test for Ramirez nonetheless, as he has faced, some awesome opposition. But I definitely see, either a decision or knockout, going in favor of Jose Ramirez. But I don't see Postol being, that competitive, honestly. With Ramirez, I don't envision a win for him.
I'll go to you. I go back to you, Francis, and I note the smile. You said that. I guess you really feel he doesn't have much of a chance, Postol. Final
Sorry,
fight
Postol.
here.
Maybe he'll surprise me.
final fight here before we begin to shut things down. Erislandy Lara, long reigning contender slash champion, ex-champion at 154 pounds, makes his return to the ring. Also this coming Saturday, fighting a guy by the name of Vendetti. I'm going to rely on you, ladies, because I have to be honest about this. I don't know much about Greg Vendetti. I remember him fighting a guy by the name of Soro a couple years back, fighting a Kama guy. But my memory of him is not that vast, not that great right now. Your thoughts on this? What kind of chance does he stand against the vet, Lara?
The same chances as Postol. Well, I really I don't know. I definitely give Postol more credit.
That much, right there.
Yeah. Vendetti is actually a plumber. I don't know if he is currently still a plumber or if he dedicates all of his time, to boxing or not. But I've seen tape of Vendetti, and he's more of like a brawler inside. He's not too fast. He really has to stand in front of his opposition and then exchange with you inside. There's really there's nothing spectacular and technical about Vendetti, I guess I'll just say. Lara is going to have the edge just in terms of the combination, the quickness, the combinations, the quickness, and all of the technical skill that he brings with him into boxing that I just don't think that Vendetti is going to be able to match.
Similar outlook from your part, Gail?
Yeah, I think Lara will make Vendetti look very slow. Vendetti will have a really hard time finding the target. I saw the matchup and I thought, Vendetti. I saw him fight Kamagai, and I didn't even remember having seen him ringside. So he doesn't leave the greatest impression. I mean, he doesn't do enough to be memorable in or out of the ring, which is really a shame. And, you have to ask yourself, how in the world did this connection get made? I mean, who did they call? How in the world did he get plucked out of nowhere? One of these journeyman guys willing to fight to get a paycheck. Michelle Soro, that was his one and only fight ever outside the United States, and he just got the crap kicked out of him. I mean, it was a beat down. It was bad. And that was right after he won a very narrow fight against Kamagai. So, that sort of put it back in his place. And he's had a handful of fights since then. Just, he's one of he did have 2 fights in 2019. So we're in a position with the pandemic that, making matchups is really challenging. And the matchmakers and the promoters are frankly a lot less picky. They just want to get their name guys in the ring, in front of the public, keep them busy, get them a paycheck, as small as it might be right now. And it's a smart thing to do because the big names, Canelo does not have to take a fight to, get rid of any worry the fans might forget him. But a guy like Lara does. So it's a smart thing for him to do to take this fight. And if a plumber named Greg Vendetti is available and, he's solid, he won't embarrass himself, but it might also be the Erislandy version of the fight that Shawn Porter had last weekend.
Oh, so he's again Bob Hope's cousin, No Hope.
Perhaps.
But he's getting paid. You know what? If you're working on people's toilets all week and you get to go have an actual real prize fight on TV, you know what? That's a pretty good deal. Who wouldn't take that? Good for him.
Right.
Yeah. Could be worse options. One last fight. I forgot to mention this fight in the chat, and I apologize for it. Doing this episode, recording this live Monday, August 24th on the 26th. Fight in Australia. You want to be on ESPN Plus. Jeff Horn, former welterweight champion, fighting Tim Tszyu Energy middleweight contest. Ladies, any thoughts on this fight? Any predictions?
Francis?
No, no,
Zeus,
I defer to you, Gail.
Zeus going to crush him. I think, Jeff Horn has absolutely made the most of his skills. He's maxed them out. He's gotten lucky a few times. I think he's running into a young buzzsaw that's going to be a problem. And for those who are devoted enough to get up and watch it live, ESPN will have it for you. Plus, ESPN Plus, I believe, or at least a streaming service. It's 2 a.m. on the West Coast. Should you want to get your ass out of bed? It's a big deal fight in Australia. It's a big headline fight, and they have crowds at their sporting events right now. They do have an audience. So if nothing else, you'll be watching it and think, "Ooh, did this play? Is this like an old fight we're watching?" No, this is going on right now. We won't know what to do seeing people in the stands. So, for that reason alone, it's probably worth checking out.
Indeed, and I think we're going to end matters on that note. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. The chat room is loaded right now. Diego Bandito, Sin Amosia, Gus, Lisa, Dan the Man. I'm thinking somebody else. The homie Amma, who's also joined us live on the show. So yeah, thank you everybody for your comments and questions. And please, if you like what you heard this evening, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also subscribe to us on Google Podcasts. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on Spreaker. Subscribe to us on iTunes. And please make sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Also, shout out to Yolanda Cortez, who was also checking us out live as well. Please check us out on iTunes. Make sure to leave a review on iTunes. Make sure to leave us a review on Spotify or any podcast platforms that carry Pound for Pound Box Report. 5-star review. It will get read on the show. I'm going to go around the panel here. I began the show with Francis. I'm going to end the show with Francis. Francis from 4 Boxing News. For those who want to follow the sweet science or anything else, and particularly your exploits in and out of the ring. I see you doing them workouts, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You can check me out at 4boxingnews.com. That's the number 4boxingnews.com. I sometimes make appearances on the Rewind Sports 60 to talk boxing. But otherwise, you can just find me there or on Twitter at 4boxingnews.
And indeed, as cute as she is on camera, don't mess with her outside of camera. I've seen her in the gym. She's no joke. Absolutely. She's fast and fierce, I like to say.
Thank you,
Gail for Communities Digital News, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk media, because you do teach media and you get paid to teach media. Or if you want to see her, she's a bit of a semi-celebrity, a semi-regular on TMZ nowadays. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me right here on Community News, which is COM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com.
And again, I want to thank the ladies for joining me on this show's special round 5 episode of Ladies Love Boxing, portion of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For those who want to talk the sweet science, music, fitness with me, you know what it is on Twitter. Brother JR at Brother JRS76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out find all information about Pound for Pound Boxing Report, where we can be found and whatnot. The blog page is the place to go to for now, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Or if you're checking us out live or at a later date on YouTube, listen to this episode, just hit that more info button, just hit that details button down below and give you all the information, where to find us on social media, where to find us on all platforms that carry podcasts, where you can donate. Let donation be the best nation. $1, $5, $2. I don't care what it is. Any donation, I will greatly appreciate it. Help me buy some more equipment to upgrade things here. And where you can check out my fitness page. I am an online coach for beachbody.com. As I said at the beginning of the show, 6 weeks of the work is the kind of the latest and greatest new knockout on Beachbody on Demand. I am doing a 6 week of the work group fitness challenge. If you willing to join us, Gail and Francis, I think Francis, you'll be up for it. I think the challenge will be right up your alley, or any other workouts on beachbody.com. Please check me out. My link to the box to my fitness pages on Pound for Pound Box Report blog page. 2 week trials running, 2 week free 2 week trials run throughout the year. So if you want to do a test run of the mini programs from beachbody.com, check out my coaching page. Check out the segment where you can check out the 2 week trials. And for those 2 weeks, any of the programs on beachbody.com, I don't care if it's 6 weeks of the work, I don't care if it's P90X, I don't care if it's Bar Blend, Shift Shop, any and all programs on Beachbody on Demand. They're free for 2 weeks. And please check me out there. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Horn and Tim Zoo. We will do a recap of Jose Ramirez and Viktor Postol, and we'll do a recap of Erislandy and Lara fighting again. Bob Hope's distant cousin, No Hope, aka Grand Vendetti, and we will do a preview of Jamel Herring. He's finally making his return to the ring. He was supposed to fight earlier this summer. It was postponed due to a positive test for COVID. I think he failed again. He came up positive again for COVID-19. He's finally making his return to the ring September 5th. Going to fight Jonathan Akendo. So we will do a preview of that fight. So for Francis from For Boxing News, for Gail from Community Digital News. Once again, I want to sincerely thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Once again, I really blessings and thank you for your comments and your questions. This has been episode 296, Ladies Level Boxing Round 5 edition of Pound for Pound Box Report. I'm your host, Michael. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Night.
Bye. Good night.
Peace and hair grease, folks.